once again, it is on Leadership State of Mind. I'm Armand. That wonderful fellow over there is Tony. How is everyone doing this wonderful last day of March? Man, how you doing, Tony?
I got to be honest, man. It's been a long month. It's been a busy month, but it's been a good month. We've got a lot of stuff going on, but I finished up a couple books. Command's doing well, work's doing well, family's doing good. And I think the biggest accomplishment of all is your book release, man. It just came in the mail yesterday.
Yeah, man. It's been a long journey. It's been a long journey. Getting this first one out. You can go to Amazon. The Fight to Lead, overcoming the battles within, overcome the battles within to lead at the highest levels. The Fight to Lead. You can go get that right now at a Kindle paperback, and coming in August, the audio book will be coming as well. It's an exciting time. It's an exciting time, man.
Yeah, man. It's congratulations, bro. I think that's awesome. We've been on the podcast for a minute now. I'm an audio guy, but I bought the book. I'm gonna read the book. That's for you and you alone at this point. And yeah, man, I think we talked about it. We're going to finish up this series on emotional intelligence and then hopefully do a nice podcast and walk through the book a little bit. So I'm looking forward to doing that with you.
I think that even the conversations that we're having right now, just about emotional intelligence and all the facets and principles of emotional intelligence, they're going to perfectly segue into the book, because it's my hypothesis that it starts inside. You have to fortify yourself before you can try to go and fortify and lead anybody else.
Love it, man. I can't wait to start the book, man, for sure. But hey, Leadership State of Mind people. So we've been talking about emotional intelligence, and we're going to keep that journey going. And today we're going to talk about what I think to be is one of the key attributes, one of the most important elements of emotional intelligence, something that I think a lot of us struggle with, and that is empathy. And so as we always like to do, I like to start off just by going over the definition a little bit, giving everyone some good baseline. So empathy, this involves the ability to understand the emotions of other people in order to interact with other people in multiple life domains, such as at work or at school. You need to be able to know what they are feeling. If a coworker is upset or frustrated, knowing what they are feeling can give you a much better idea of how to respond. I know me and you have had many conversations about this. I know that we talk about the fact that empathy is a key component to be able to be the best version of ourselves and be the best leader we can be. I know that one thing that I definitely wanted to kick over and have you talk about it is that in a lot of our jobs, whether that's in the Navy, outside the Navy, everything is results-based driven, results-based organizations. I need to do this and I need to accomplish that. And sometimes those type of organizations can lead to a lack of empathy. And I wanted to kick it over to you, man, and just give your 2 cents on that and talk about how we can overcome some of those things.
Absolutely. The days that we're living in, with when you look at individual companies, publicly traded companies, it's all about the stock output. It's all about that quarterly report, that report that you give to the stockholders on how you're doing. And it's extremely short-sighted, but it's not just in the short-sightedness that drives this disconnection with the people in those organizations. It's the only thing that matters is the outcome. It's just results. And because that culture is what's sent down to the organization, everybody is just results-based. Everybody is outcome-focused. And if you are results-based and just outcome-focused, you miss the actual people that are helping you get to that outcome. You miss the people that are getting you the results. And it creates this complete disconnection from you as the leader, to the person that you're leading, where you look at them solely as objects. You look at them solely as things, as tools to get what you want to get accomplished done. And that is what we call dehumanization. You don't even look at people as people. They are just things meant to accomplish whatever it is that you want to get accomplished. And that disconnection, that dehumanization is the complete opposite of empathy. And you lose your leadership effectiveness when you interact with people from that standpoint, because they know you don't care. They know that you're not putting them, they're how they feel, what their goals and desires are, and not putting at you don't really care about that. You just care about the outcome, just the results. And the people that are charged to get you that results, if you treat them like that, you won't be getting no results, Jack.
Yep. Yeah, we always got to shout out the books and some of the conversations that we have. Shout out to Arbinger Institute. Self-Deception talks a lot about dehumanization and not looking as people. That's how you create self-betrayal and start creating some problems when you don't know how to lead because you're not people. And I think for a lot of you, I'm going to use a military term that I know is used a lot. That is my number one rule that you're not allowed to say. And that's the term bodies. In the Navy, we're always tasked with, hey, there's always things that got to get done. And when I first joined the Navy, it was like, I need 10 bodies topside to go do this thing. And man, when you really break that down, like on a scale of like how much emotional intelligence you have, you cannot go no longer than dehumanizing someone than just calling them like a body to do something. And so one of my rules in my command is you're not allowed to use the term body. And I love it now because when someone says it from outside of my command, it's like, hey, we don't say that here. That's not there's people, there's sailors. And so I just think the point is that what I want to get out of this conversation today is that if we can't understand that our number one commodity is the people that we serve, and if we don't understand how to be empathetic with these people, then we are going to be limited by our potential because they will not be motivated to do the best they can because they feel like objects. So you treat people like objects, then you get object results.
That's a fact.
You treat people like people. You treat people like people where they feel a part of the team, they feel welcome, they feel safe, they feel like they're in a good environment, there's a good culture, a good vibe around you. You know what's going on in their personal life. You can engage in conversations. Then you get someone who wants to give you everything because they know that you care about them. And I got to be honest, man, like I know for me, for sure, this was something I struggled with as a young sailor. This was something I struggled with as a young leader. I'll tell a story a little bit later about that, man. But it's just, if you're out there listening and you're like, man, maybe I'm not where I need to be, or, hey, I'm a brand new leader. But what are some things you think I should focus on? If I had the empathy that I have right now, 10, 15 years ago, if someone sat me down and was like, let me explain to you that if you can change the way you think and be more empathetic to the people you serve, that you will be able to be so much further along in your journey of leadership, man, I would have hugged them. Like I would have been so happy because it never happened. And all I want to get out today is if you're a leader and you don't really think a lot about empathy being important, hopefully you get something out of this. Yeah. But if you're young in this game and you're trying to be a future leader, understanding the role of empathy and how it plays out as a leader, I think is one of the most critical things you can learn and get good at. And I think there's a lot of benefit to it.
Definitely. For me, one of the things I remember so viscerally is being a part of organizations, being led by non-empathetic leaders, and how there's no desire to do any work other than just enough not to get fired. If I just do just enough not to have somebody say anything to me, do just enough not to have anybody bother me, I'm operating at probably somewhere in the 17 to 18% range of my potential. I have zero desire to give my all. I'm not all in by any stretch of the imagination. And I just remember that. Just remember feeling dejected. Just remember feeling down. Remember feeling like, why am I here? And that feeling is something that stays with me all the time because I absolutely dread being a leader that facilitates an environment where people do not want to be there. They don't want to work. They just don't want any part of it. And they're only doing it because I got this clock that says I got to do it. I got this contract that says I got to do it, but that's it. And the results that you get as a result because of that is insane. You're not going to get what you're looking for as a leader.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, man. Let me ask you the first question is, what is something that you do to be empathetic and show empathy as a leader on a daily, weekly basis? What are some of the key components that you can point to paint a picture of what these future leaders and current leaders should be doing?
Hey, this one now is complicated, so I'm gonna talk slowly so everybody can catch up. You know what? You ready?
I'm ready.
I'm
ready. Oh, okay.
I shut up and listen. Not listen to respond, listen to understand. We as humans, we are self-serving. We are 100% doing any and everything that we can to ensure our survival. And because of that, we're going to act in our own self-interest day in, day out, hour in, hour out, minute in, minute out. We're going to do everything that we can to make sure things are good with us. So the world revolves around us as the individual. When I'm interacting with another human in a way that leadership dictates that I serve and I honor them, I can't be the one that's trying to put my agenda, what I want, on somebody else. So I need to shut up so I can understand legitimately what they need, who they are, and how I can best serve them. Because it's about them. It's about the person. It's not about me. I can do this. Nah, just shut up and listen. And then once that person is done, you repeat back to them what you heard to ensure that what you heard is exactly what they need. That's for me to really get a grasp of somebody else's world. And I say somebody else's world because we all live in our own separate multiverses, so to speak. We all live in our own separate world. And we have to be able to merge in and out of people's worlds and understand what their map of the world looks like. Because what's on my map is not going to be on their map, because we have very vastly different experiences. So I need to be able to merge in that understanding portion, right? I have to merge into their world, understand how they're seeing, what they're seeing, so that I can best serve them. And a lot of times, if you just take the time just to be a listening ear, you serve the purpose right there, not even interjecting, not even saying anything, just being an active listener. So that's the number one for me. That's the number one thing that I try my best to do, because as leaders, we're problem solvers. We're charged to develop solutions. And as people are talking, as people are bringing us things, it's very easy to get into, oh, I know what the answer is. Ooh, I know what the answer is.
Yep.
If they just shut up, I can tell them what they need to get out of problem solver mode, because that's not what they need. They need somebody to listen to them, need somebody to understand them, because what you think they need may not be the right thing, because you're only seeing it from your perspective.
Love it, man. First of all, great advice. So I'll follow that up with: get off of your computer, stop checking your email, and engage with the people that you lead. So listen, some people might have 400, 500 people that work for them. Some people might have 20 or 30. At the end of the day, we all have emails, papers, projects, things that require us to sit on a computer. If I go back to our first podcast, when I talk about when we were getting into learning how to be disciplined and discussing those things, having a plan and knowing what you're going to do every day creates bandwidth, right? When you have repeatable processes. And I will tell you that I was a little overwhelmed when I showed up to my command, because my previous command was a submarine. People couldn't get that far from me. I could stand in one place and I would see everybody.
You could touch everybody.
Right? Yeah, I'm like, I just have to stand here and someone's going to come and eat. I'll see everyone. But now I'm at a command. You got 400-something people. They're all spread out in different departments. They all have different roles. And so I legitimately wrote down every day a department that I was going to go visit and walk around. Not an agenda, just walk. Today, I'm going to go and talk to my C operations department. And I'm going to block time off on my schedule, not to have meetings, but to just go walk around. And then you know what happens? you start having conversations. You start asking, hey man, how's everything going? And I'll tell you, entering argument, before you start that walk, I would like for you to take your ego and take all of your thoughts about how good you're doing or how great everything is, and leave them in your office, and go out there with no agenda other than engage with the people that we're charged with leading. And then what you find is that you start to build relationships. You start to ask questions. Hey, what's going on this weekend? What do you got? Hey, how's that next qualification? And you start having these conversations. And then when you go there with no agenda and no ego, you start to learn about what they need, what they're frustrated with. Because you're engaging with them and because you're going there to want nothing, they begin to talk to you about things that they wish they did have, or things that they're frustrated about, or things that they would love to see in the future. And these conversations lead to trust building events with just by listening and then taking action on the things that they think are beneficial to them. But it can't be done unless you're in the right headspace to go do that. If you're trying to defend every decision that you've made and you are not being empathetic to their feelings, then you're missing the whole point, right? If you walk around and they're like, oh man, you know what would be really cool? And then they say whatever they're saying and you're like, well, that's dumb. Like, I think that's a horrible idea. You might as well, maybe you should stay back up in your office. But if you're actually trying to be an emotional, intelligent person, be a leadership state of mind representative, then the thing you have to be able to understand is that not everyone thinks the way you think. I think back to me when I was a young sailor and I had no wife, no kids. I was married to the Navy. I was married to the game. You need me to stay late. You need me to get qualified something, whatever it was, like I'm all in because there's nothing else I'm focused on. There's nothing else for me. Like, this is it. Like, I'm about to do whatever I can to be great at this. But that is not every person at your job. There are people with sick parents. There are people with that join the Navy or at your organization that have a family, that have kids, that need to get home at a certain time because the spouse works. There's all these things that you have no idea about unless you take the time to put yourself in those shoes. And to me, I love the shut up thing. Let them talk and let them listen, but you got to be available to do that. Those people that say, oh, I have an open door policy, man, that's so fake. You got an open door policy, maybe, but if no one knows you and you don't engage with them and they don't trust that you have their best interest, then that door is going to stay open and no one's going to walk through it. But when you engage and you go find them, what you find is that you can understand what their struggle is. You can put yourself in their shoes, and then you can begin to problem solve to make the situation better. And then the end result is someone who feels a part of the team, who genuinely feels mutual trust, and then they're going to work harder.
Man, so one of the things I hear, like since you've been talking, all I hear over and over again is a genuine fascination, a genuine curiosity for the people that you have the privilege to lead. There's just this genuine, I want to understand them. I want to know them. I'm fascinated with who they are. I'm just curious to understand how they navigate this thing. That's what I heard over and over again while you're talking. So I think as a part of it, a part of developing this empathy, be fascinated with your people. Have a genuine curiosity about who they are. That's what I was hearing over and over again, man.
Yeah, man, I like that that's your perspective. I definitely that's how I feel. I genuinely want to know the people. But the reason is that if I understand how they work and understand what their needs are, what their whys are, not everyone wants to be a future CEO, CMC, all these things, right? Some people don't want that. And that's okay. But if you don't know your people and know what it is that they want and can be empathetic to their wants, desires, needs, goals, then what you end up with is not knowing how to push the right buttons to get the best out of them. I don't need you to be me. I just need you to be the best version of yourself. That's why we're here. And the last thing I was going to say to you is those moments when you're walking around, you never know what that impact can do. I am blown away when I have people transfer out of my command and organization, the things that they remember and the things that they mention to me, I'm like, whoa. I had this sailor just a couple weeks ago. She was checking out of my command and she goes, you know why I re-enlisted CMC? I was like, why? What happened? She said, because of you. She said, remember that time that you stopped and talked to me and asked me a bunch of questions and then I didn't see you for 2 weeks. Just you were working. I was I took leave. I came back and everything. And then you walked by me and you were like, hey, how'd everything go? What's going on with that? She goes, at that moment, I was like, he actually listened to me. He actually was engaged and wanted to know how I was doing. And she said that moment started her entire change in maybe this could be something that I could do because I didn't know that's how leaders are supposed to act. And so you have these moments, these opportunities every day, but you got to take advantage of them and you got to genuinely care about the people that you're serving.
Absolutely, man. It's just, I think about, there's a quote that Nelson Mandela said. He says, if you talk to a man in a language that he understands, it goes to his heart. It goes to his head. If you talk to him in his language, it goes to his heart. That's something that has had such an impact on me because it's not easy to develop that empathy. It's not easy to get out of yourself and put yourself in the perspective of somebody, especially when they're 180 out from who you are. Your values may be different. Your likes, desires, life goals, all these things may be vastly different. But it's on us to connect because they are a person of value. At the end of the day, the thing that resonates with in my mind 24/7 is that this is a person of value. This is a person of value, and they deserve leadership that's going to help extract that value for their lives. That's the thing that continued, regardless of what mistakes they may show and the entering arguments and, this person, because in the submarine force, just to take it back there, how many times have we wait when a sailor shows up and we see them, their stance, their posture, how they carry themselves, their demeanor, and we say, they ain't gonna make it.
Yeah, all the time.
Yep. All the time. And I think about those times when I used to do that. I'm just like, oh man, why would I put that on somebody? Why would I put that evil on them like that? Because that shuts down. If I don't believe that they can be anything, I just sentence them to not making it from the jump, instead of taking the time to understand them, to know them, to connect with them, and start with, this is a person of value. This is a person of value that deserves leadership, that can extract that value so they can do what it is that they want to do with their lives. It's not just about this Navy thing for me. It's just about the person. And it goes back to what we talk about at the outset. Hey, we are trying to help make better people. This Navy thing, it's all good, because if you help make better people, you're going to automatically make better sailors, right? But the lasting relationships, the things that matter, the impactful things that legitimately matter, is that connection point with a person, not just this, going back to the forbidden word, body, the body with the uniform. It's about person. It's about connecting on a level that communicates to them that you as a leader know they are a person of value and they are worth honor. They are worth honor.
I think if everyone could take that to their organization, that they were going to make a concerted effort to get to know the people that they lead and to look at them as, like you said, someone with value, someone with a purpose. And I just think it's a huge step. Yeah. And we always talk about in this podcast, we don't live in an ivory tower. Yeah. We're not perfect. And I feel like relevant to tell you the growth that I've had over the past 10, 15 years, man. There's one event where I can tell you that I lacked empathy to a level that it bothered me for a really long time. First of all, empathy, I think the older you get, the more experience you have, I think it can, if you put effort into it, can come to you. But I also think experiences and the people that are around you can also give you empathy when you've seen more things and been around more things. So I was a young leader, young supervisor in the Navy. I was a chief. And man, we just had a rough go of it. We had some sailors that were sick and some sailors that had some issues with spouses, and we were just shorthanded. And I had a sailor that came to see me, said, "Hey, my wife just called me. My son fell and they think his arm's broken. They're going to the hospital." And even thinking about saying this out loud bothers me, man. But bottom line is, I was like, what do you need to go for it? Like, your wife's going. Right? Now, at this point, was not married, or maybe about to be married, but no kids. And I was like, all right, man, if you really got to go, you can go, but just make sure you come back to work because I need you here to finish all the stuff. And I got to tell you, man, every time I say that out loud, I'm like, where was your head at when you said that? That was the most dehumanizing thing I think I've ever said to somebody. And it ate me up, man. It really did. And it wasn't until about a year or two later, because I just would play it back and over in my head. I'm like, I can't believe I did that. I ended up reaching out to him and just be like, hey, man, I'm so sorry. I was not where I should have been as a leader for you. And it's great. It's great that he knew that I'd done other things to show my worth and that I was a good person. But he accepted the apology and understood that I was under a lot of stress and I didn't have kids at the time. And bottom line is, he accepted the apology. But my point to everyone is, you're going to be in a position where maybe you don't have any kids, but someone else does. And you don't take the time to put yourself in their shoes and be like, yeah, of course they should be with their kid right now. Your kid just fell and broke his arm. Like, they need to be there for that moment. And definitely a mistake I made. Definitely something I think a lot about. Something I will not repeat because I think I've grown a lot from there. That was a long time ago. But I just think it's important for you to understand. Think to yourself, what were some times where someone came to you with a legitimate problem, a concern, and you brushed it off and was like, oh, that's not important to me, so it shouldn't be important to you. And if you do that, you are lacking empathy. You are lacking the ability to put yourself in someone else's shoes and try to really understand where they're coming from. If you get the chance, shout out Renee Brown, Dare to Lead. Phenomenal book. She has an entire chapter on empathy versus sympathy. She tells a great story that really wraps that up really well. And it just talks about how when you're being empathetic, you're able to be there in the moment with the person and genuinely care about what's going on in their life. So if you haven't seen that, or if you haven't read that book, definitely check that out. That's my story. Oh man, it's something that it's hard to say because, you know, no one's perfect. No one wakes up and says they want to be a bad leader or a bad person. But in that moment, I didn't have the emotional intelligence to put myself in the right situation. And unfortunately, I made a bad call. I think I've made plenty of other good calls since, but we got to learn from our mistakes and get better. And yeah, man, that's the one that always sticks with me. That's the story I always tell when I'm trying to explain people the importance of empathy.
Yeah, man. One of the things that you can't see when you meet the leader is all the scars that we have visible from the bad calls, the mistakes, the lack of empathy. But we all have them. We all have them. And the key in all of this too is it's a learning process. It's a part of growth. And remember, this EQ thing is not innate. It's not something that just comes naturally. I'm going to say it over and over again. It has to be an intentional effort on your end to grow this, to cultivate this, or the scars will just continue to be in the same place. You'll just go through the same things over and over again and rack your brain trying to figure out why won't they do what I need them to do? Why are my results, why are my outcomes so bad? It starts with you. Starts in here and taking the opportunity. And one of the illustrations I have in my mind when I think about empathy is two people arguing. Between them, there's a globe, and it's the earth, a representation of the earth, and they're arguing about what they see. Because yes, it absolutely is the earth, right? But there's vastly different things on one side than the other.
Yeah.
We're just two people arguing, going back and forth. But this is what's happening. This is how I don't understand. No, it's this. But no, this is what's over here. This is all you have to do is walk on the other side and see what they're seeing so that that's why okay. Yeah. See, now it makes sense. Things come into context. Things come into clarity for us when we're just willing to step on that other side. Go on that other side and see how they're seeing, see what they're experiencing, try to understand that. And there's no blueprint for this. No. We can't give you a step-by-step guide on how to be empathetic. It's just a willingness to shut up and be curious, to be fascinated with the people that you have the privilege of leading. And the things that you find out, they're going to lead to some new and exciting things in your own life. If it wasn't for me learning about the interests of my team, I would have never been introduced to anime. So something I never thought I would be into, but it's something that I like because I got curious about. I said, what my team doing when they leave this? And we're watching One Piece. What's that? Oh, you watch cartoons? Oh, you better not say that. No, it's not cartoons. It's anime. Whoa, don't ever call anime cartoons, just so you know. But getting curious and understanding and having conversations with my team, my guys about it, man, it just facilitated more and more of that connection. And it makes such a better environment. And because you have taken interest in something that they're interested in, they know that you care. They know that you actually give a care about.
I love that. I just want to add one more thing to that. As a leader, I think it's important when you're having these conversations and you're trying to build relationships is that it's going to require you to be a little bit vulnerable too.
Yeah.
It's going to require you to let them in a little bit about who you are.
Yeah. That's the other side.
Where you came from. And that's the other side of it, right? So, said, man, there's not a notebook, a textbook, a step-by-step guideline to empathy, right? You have to genuinely and authentically be yourself, be vulnerable with the people that you're talking to, engage in conversation, genuinely care about them. And I think if you do, you'll see a big change in your team and their performance. But you can't handle it from a perspective of you're a robot and you're their supervisor. And because then they're never going to open up and be real with you. And you need them to open up to be real so you can understand where they're coming from. And that requires a give and take relationship. Just wanted to add that too.
Yeah, because what ends up happening, right? I think about things in agriculture all the time.
Sure.
And as an ingredient to facilitate, I talk about facilitating this environment. I think about it as a field. And I have to have the sunshine. I have to have the watering of the crops so that I can hopefully ensure a harvest at some point down the line. But I look at being empathetic as the watering in this, as the providing the nutrients, right? And if I am not willing to go out and do the work and engage with the ground and go and make sure everything is good to go and that there's nothing that's hindering that growth, if I'm not willing to go down there and do that, if I'm not willing to be open and honest and be the leader that's willing to reveal, that's willing to invest all that I can, then I won't get a harvest on the back end. And if I do, it's going to be minimal. But just as we are expecting our people to be all in for us, we got to be all in for them.
Love it, man. Love it. Hey, another thing I want to talk to you about is because I think it's really important is that we need to make sure that we understand the difference between empathy and sympathy. Yeah. Because I think that they get mixed up sometimes. The couple things that I wanted to say was empathy requires a desire to understand. Yeah. Right? Sympathy acknowledges someone has a bad situation. I think being sympathetic is good. You should be sympathetic at times, but understanding the difference between the two goes a long way in your emotional intelligence journey, and it goes a long way with, I think, being genuine. I think if someone comes to you and they're like, man, I got a lot of stuff going on, it's really hard right now for me to focus, and you're like, yeah, man, that sounds difficult, right? Like you're acknowledging that someone is having something difficult. You're showing sympathy, but you're not being empathetic. Like you don't have this desire to understand why. Yep. And that is something that they are not the same. They are not equal. Yep. We want people to be empathetic, not sympathetic.
Yep.
And so think about those conversations when you're engaging with people, and go back to what you were saying earlier. You got to genuinely care about what's going on. And so when they're saying this to you, listen to what they have to say, wait to talk. But then when you do respond from a place of empathy with a desire to understand what they're going through, not a desire to end the conversation or to move on to the next thing by saying things like, yeah, it sounds hard.
Right.
I don't know if anything you want to add to that, but I just think it's important to know the difference.
Yeah, I think about it like empathy causes us to grow closer to the person, because to understand them, I have to get closer to them. Sympathy requires no action. Sympathy requires no connection. It's just, and with sympathy, I can do that from a distance, right? It's borderline pity versus a legitimate, genuine understanding. So empathy draws us closer to the person or to the team or to whatever it is that we're trying to be empathetic towards. Sympathy requires no connection. It's just, oh, that sucks. And I can disconnect and walk away from that.
Love that. Love the pity comment. I think that's huge. Like when someone is opening up to you and saying that they're struggling with something, they do not want your pity. Like they don't want that. No. And I'm with you. I think that sympathy in a lot of times makes that how they feel. And so you need to just understand when someone is coming to you and they're wanting to tell you what's going on in their life, you have to just try to understand their situation and to be there with them in that moment. Right. Not to show pity, but to just show them you understand. Yep. And that could be as simple as some of the words you say. Again, please, I don't have a book that has an entire chapter on empathy versus sympathy. Dare to Lead, go check it out. But for real, you just have to be able to make them feel that you genuinely care about what's going on with them. Hey, I hear you, right? Instead of saying, I'm sorry, or, man, that sucks. Like, it could just be changing how you say things. Hey, man, I hear what you're saying. And what you're saying sounds really tough. And then go back to what you were saying before, is then let them continue to talk. But acknowledge them in that moment that you're listening and you hear what they're saying and you know that it's hard. And that, again, is something that's not easy, right? People don't like uncomfortable situations. If someone's sad, someone's depressed, someone's going through things, a lot of people don't like that type of dialogue. But you have to strive. If we're going to continue to go down this leadership journey and we're going to continue to want to build future leaders, you have to strive to be empathetic in those situations and not sympathetic.
That's a fact. That's a fact. And man, I think that this is a conversation that we can continue to have for hours, man. But I will say to the leadership state of mind community out there, it's a dynamic conversation about empathy because it's not an easy thing to do. So one of the things that we're asking, leave your stories, under the comments. Let us know how you're doing. Ask us the questions. Engage with us about this topic, because I think this is one of the major unlock keys to leadership. Being able to really deploy empathy in a way that communicates the care for your team is something that is undefeated, absolutely undefeated. Yep. As you're listening to this video, obviously like, share, comment, but let us know how you are doing in this realm so we can continue the conversation about this very important principle of empathy. Tony, got anything else, man?
I don't, man.
You've been dropping all these bars, bro. You've been dropping all these bars. You got anything else for us?
Nah, man, I don't have anything else. I just hope that people continue to listen. Please share, follow, tell your friends, subscribe. We're going to continue to put more podcasts out. We're going to continue this journey through emotional intelligence, and then we'll get into some new topics in the coming months. But as always, man, I appreciate the conversation, appreciate the dialogue. Leadership State of Mind family, please keep listening, keep engaging with us. And if there's something you want to hear, something you want us to talk about, let us know in the comments section, and we can continue to have those great conversations, man.
No doubt. Peace.
All right. Peace.